Power creep is inevitable. When talking about gacha games, there's the likely chance that your favorite character will all of a sudden be shot in the back of the head by a character that does the same as your favorite, but with 3 times the stats and other benefits. Or they will release an absurdly good unit that causes you to skip other, more fun units. Arknights has been pretty good about managing its power creep. Many of the high rarities are pretty good in their own rights and are usually considered side grades to their more meta counterparts. As well as those who like huffing all types of copium, we also have units that do other roles or don't do the same thing, so their use is still viable and worth pulling. So when outliers do surface, it is much more noticeable, even if as of late those outliers have been increasing in number. This can be seen with operators like Rubber Ducky Chen, Ling, Moinar, and Degan. Their main commonality being all of them are able to output absurd amounts of DPS that make anything that could have been threatening on the stage disappear within one skill cycle. Those operators are busted 100%, yet Walter White is still in a league of her own when it comes to having not only busted amounts of DPS, but also survivability and utility as well. Wisadel is horrendously broken and redefines what being the best operator in the game means. If you've been watching any type of upcoming operator videos or showcases of Wisadel's S3, then I don't have to explain in too much detail that she does an absurd amount of damage. Not only is her damage absurd, the folks at HG decided that it'd be super hilarious if they gave her an AoE that covers almost 1/3 of a whole stage. Wisadel can not only straight up kill the boss for you, but while she's doing it, she'll also obliterate any other enemies near the boss, making the stage essentially solved the moment you hit the skill activate button. Now you may be thinking, so she has big numbers, so do many others. But that's not the only thing Wisadel has. Wisadel also comes with almost unmatched survivability. Her second talent allows her to summon a Shadow of Revenant that provides Wisadel herself camouflage, meaning she's invisible to enemies. While that is good, other operators also have it, so it's not even unique to Wisadel herself. What is busted about this talent are the stats of the summon itself. The stats of the summon rival Ling's Double Dragons in tankiness, with Wisadel's summons only having around 100 less defense, but she makes up for it due to the fact that the summon has 50 fucking res. And they also do pretty decent damage as a bonus. And then she gets 2 more of those when she activates her Kill Everything skill. So think about it. Wisadel gets a skill that is able to atomize 99% of the game, and then along with it she gets 3 double Ling Dragons to bait damage and provide camouflage for her. I don't think I need to explain why having all of that in one skill activation is horrendously broken. Yet it doesn't stop there, since those tanky summons don't only benefit Wisadel herself. Her summons will also keep your team alive by beating hard hitting range attacks and baiting boss attacks as well. So even if a boss or a wave enemy survive Wisadel's skill, the sentinels will still provide utility to your team by baiting attacks. Now, all of these things, high DPS, incredible utility, and amazing survivability, are all par for the course when it comes to units that are top of the meta. Ines has almost unmatched utility, Moinar has incredible AoE DPS and can be used to manage bait easier, Degan has both high DPS and survivability with her ability to tremble, but only Wisadel has all of them. That's not even her most egregious transgression in being a disgustingly good unit. Her worst aspect, and what really sours her for me personally, is that she ignores her archetype's restrictions. Degan is a Swordmaster, and up until her release, all Swordmaster skills were offensive recovery to balance out their high DPS. This was for all intents and purposes an unspoken rule of Swordmasters, yet Degan came along and broke the rule by having her S3 be an auto recovery skill. Degan breaking the rule did feel pretty odd and seemed wrong at the time, and still kinda does, but Swordmasters only having offensive recovery skills was never explicitly stated, thus her having a broken auto recovery skill is fine in terms of explicit game mechanics and only breaks the established notions, and that is what separates Wisadel from previous broken meta units. Wisadel can outright ignore her archetype's restrictions on her skill 3. A skill which is already the best DPS skill in the game. This sours my view on the balancing of Wisadel due to it breaking, for a lack of a better term, the laws of the game. If HG decided to keep Wisadel under the Flinger's inability to hit aerial units, she would still be the best unit in the game just due to her numbers, but at the very least, she wouldn't be able to solve all the problems in the game. You would still need a unit that is capable of hitting drones to beat the stages, making it feel like she's a little bit balanced. However, the fact that she hits aerial units gives the impression that HG decided to throw out their own rules and decided that, fuck it, we're gonna make the most broken unit in the game for 5th year to really pump up the sale numbers. This is exacerbated by the fact that she's a limited alter of a previous limited unit. Capitalism aside, there is some comedy to be found in this. You could see this as HG admitting that flingers as a concept was kinda fucking stupid. So to rectify that, they just let Wisadel hit and target drones so they could actually be the uncontested best unit in the game. Just a funny thought. Now that we have gone over briefly why she's busted and some other reasons as to why she sours my view on her, is she the harbinger of death that is going to kill the game as HG decides to pump out busted unit after busted unit with no quality control? And does it signify the death of Arknights as we know it since she breaks the game that badly? Well, the answer is a bit more nuanced. Arknights is both not a hard game and a hard game. The general difficulty curve of the game goes something like this. Start of the game is pretty easy, with the first 3 chapters being a breeze, with a steady increase past that, with events being almost unbeatable without support units. It stays hard for a bit of time as you feel the resource strain on your account, while you also do not have all the best units and solution for stages. And if you do, you're too broke to build them. After about 6 months to a year, depending on the grind, you finally reach mid-game, where you have some of the busted units and the game is getting easier. But you still may struggle at EX8 challenge mode, to then reaching the easiest the game ever is, with all the busted units, or at least most of them, being on your team, where only S stages might give you some problems. Congratulations, the game is now easy. You can steamroll your way through 99% of stages. Wisadel will make that curve look like this. Wisadel will flatten the whole curve as long as you're able to get her to E2. And is that a bad thing? In some ways, yes. Wisadel will most likely do irreparable damage to new players where they never really learn any game mechanics due to Wisadel just blowing everything up. There already is the meme in the Yin community that we cannot read, and this will only get worse with the release of Wisadel. While that is a shame, the only reason why Wisadel's inclusion in the game is barely okay and ultimately not terrible for the game is because the game is balanced around this point in the graph, aka it's balanced around mid-game accounts that do not have all the units, making it still feel tough and rewarding once you overcome those hard EX stages or S stages. Wisadel does not change that balancing, or at the very least has not changed it drastically yet. So for newer or mid-game players that do not get her, they can still clear those hard stages. Niche Knight players can still clear stages. She is not a requirement to beat the hardest stages in the game, meaning you can just bench her, and it's like she doesn't exist in the first place. This of course also includes the fact that AK is a single player game, where one does not need the best units since you're not competing against others in a PvP format. The difficulty of the game has not been raised to accommodate the brokenness of Wisadel, thus letting AK keep that notion that you can clear with any of the lower rarity units with some ingenuity. And I think that is the most important part as to why I've come to terms with Wisadel being in the game. Because we have seen the community reaction is when the devs decide they want to balance around the best units in the game, giving enemies so many bloated stats. I'm of course talking about DOS. The majority of people disliked DOS because you needed most of your meta units to clear the hardest stage in that event. DOS not only forced you to use the best of the best, but it also forced you to learn how mechanics work. People had to learn how to use skills in conjunction to get the most out of their DPS, learn skill cycle timings, learn redeployment timings, and much more, since a full brute force clear was not possible, or at the very least it was 10 times harder to do. You can also see this in CN's reaction to playing IS-5 at Ascension 15 without Wisadel, where many complained that it was too hard and not fun. Now imagine a world where the game shifts to accommodate Wisadel. Many people will stop having fun since she is a needed solution. And the beauty of Arknights, in my opinion, is the fact that you can use many operators to find very many interesting solutions to a stage. That being said, I hope you all are ready for the influx of guides only using Wisadel to clear stages. We saw it with Chalter, we saw it with Ling, and now we will see it again with Wisadel. So, is it the end of the world? No. We survived all those other busted units, and AK will be fine with this busted unit. Power creep is inevitable. There will be a unit that is released that is better than Wisadel in the future, and this discussion will return again once that future unit is released. We are pretty spoiled in AK with many units of all rarities being quite good and are all capable of contributing to clear stage. Power creep is inevitable, and changes in the game will happen because of them. Many modern AK bosses all have some form of damage reduction or invincibility that are a result of units such as Muinar, Degen, Ling, and now Wisadel. Yet the overall difficulty and balance has not really moved much in the last year. Stages have gotten harder, but so has the general strength of all operators, not just the super busted ones. As long as that stays true, I can come to terms with such broken units being introduced into the game, even if I personally dislike it, because it makes it just really boring. We cannot escape it, we can only hope that they don't go too overboard with it. Or hope that Enfield releases sometime soon. Till next time.